This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that you'll consider this like your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a rating and a brief written review? It would be so helpful, encouraging others to be able to find this podcast who haven't located it yet. I just did a podcast a few moments ago regarding a question that was asked to me yesterday by a friend. What are some of the marks of a good leader? And then the counterbalance of that was, the question was also asked, what are some things that leaders shouldn't be doing that maybe some of them do? Now, not very often do I like talking in the negative, but there are some things, if we're going to be as effective leaders as we can be, that we should not do. Now remember again, the most important form of leadership is self-leadership. Are you leading yourself? We're leaders in our families. You're leaders in your churches. You're leaders wherever you work in the neighborhood. Every one of us operate at a leadership component somewhere along the line. So I have about 8, maybe 9 items that I would say, here are some things that leaders more than likely should not do and shouldn't practice in. The first one is a leader shouldn't forget to prioritize. Most people get up in the day and they just go after it. They don't give it any thought. They don't prioritize what they need to do. They have no goals, no vision, no view. And that's all right if you would like for the rest of your life to be living out the goals and purposes of someone else, because the first person who email is probably one of the most wonderful tools for me to force my will upon you, or someone to force their goals upon me. Or they'll wait till they get to the office until someone calls and say, hey, would you like to go to lunch? Hey, would you like to have a cup of coffee? Or some disgruntled person from somewhere contacts them, begins to complain and gripe, and then their day has been hijacked. Now, I'm not saying, regardless of how you planned your day, there's still disgruntled people to be dealt with, that have to be dealt with and taken care of, frankly, in a positive way. I don't mean in a bad way of taking care of them. You have to answer emails. You have to return phone calls. You have projects that you're working on. But set your priority. Know what 1 to 2 to 3, some people say all the way to 5, I say 3, things that you are wanting to get done today, and you're so certain of it, you won't go to bed tonight until they're done. And make sure one of them is goal-oriented. But if you don't prioritize, and you just get on your horse every day and ride off in 1,000 different directions, at the end of some significant time, you'll look back and wonder, where did the time go? Where have my efforts gone? What has happened? And the reason isn't you didn't set priorities. Let me give you the second thing that a leader should never do. A leader should never believe they know everything. Now, I know that we all grasp that intellectually. We all hear about lifelong learning and that we can learn from anyone. And no one would ever think to say, unless there was something mentally unbalanced about them, that everyone knows they don't know everything. But there are several people who work through the world and certainly give you the impression that not only do they know everything, what they don't know isn't worthy of being known. This is sort of the same category where certain people, they really don't have opinions. They have nothing but facts, because in their mind, all of their opinions are in fact facts. You are going to get in trouble, leader, if you get up every day and carry yourself and act as though you know everything. You don't need anyone. You don't need to listen. You don't need to stretch yourself. You don't need to invest in your own personal productivity. You don't need your own spiritual development. We've all met them. Matter of fact, when I discussed this, when I first mentioned the first part of that sentence on point 2, someone came into your mind. You worked with somebody, you have known someone, you have been around someone who carries themselves and acts as if they know everything. Now listen, if no one came into your mind, when I said we all know someone who acts as if they know everything. I'd be very afraid if I were you, because you may in fact be that person. That was a joke. But a leader should not ever carry themselves like they know everything. I think a third essential characteristic for a leader not to have is a leader cannot be angry. You can't, I don't mean that you don't get angry, but there are angry people that you know these folks as well. And again, you'll have a vision in your mind of a particular person. There are some people that you just almost have to walk around them on eggshells because they're always angry about something. They're always about ready to blow their top. They have these enormous emotional eruptions, and they just sort of vomit on everyone, and it makes for a hostile working environment. There are some of us out there that we need someone to help us with our anger issues. If we just are always angry, and we're always letting everyone know how angry we are, and we always feel as if we've been mistreated, you're never going to be a leader of women and men if you go through life angry all the time. Leader, don't be a person spewing anger all over everyone. I think the fourth item that I would say about a leader, a thing not to do, is to live a life out of balance. It is so easy to get out of balance. I just had to have my automobile in, maybe it was last month, because it was the tires were out of balance. I evidently have hit too many of the potholes in my part of the world, and it throws the car, and the car can't drive straight because it's out of balance. For all of us, it is a danger for our lives to get out of balance, but it's even more so for those in leadership positions, including leading your own life. I'm all for work, and I'm all for being productive, and I'm all for getting a lot done and working hard. I say yes and amen to all of that. But work isn't the entirety of your life. What you do does not define who you are. You need to practice self-care. Get yourself in good health. Eat properly. You need to be in balance in your relationships. If you're married, you've got to work on that relationship. I am bearing down on 39 and a half years of marriage, and tonight my wife and I are going on a date. You have to work at relationships. If you have children, grandchildren, you have to work at those relationships, your friends, your spiritual life. Some people are reading and doing all other sorts of things, but their spiritual life is out of balance. Read the Word, worship, get in a Bible study, a small group, nurture your soul. Keep yourself in balance. And I mean, I can go on to all kinds of categories. Probably the reason it's so easy to get out of balance, there are several things we have to keep balanced. Your finances, if you're in debt up to your eyeballs and you're not saving for your future, you're not able to tithe, you're not able to do things, you wouldn't be able to fund a $500 emergency without using a credit card. You've got to get your life in balance, and as we get ready in a few months to move into a new year, that might be a good goal for you, is to how can I live a balanced life? As a leader, there's always going to be the pull to get out of balance. Don't follow the gravitational pull of the crowd and the urgent. Live a life in balance. Now, I understand that there are going to be deadlines that will make our lives out of balance a little bit. It's impossible to live perfectly balanced every day. But your goal should be, if I'm neglecting my physical, I've got to take care of that. If I'm neglecting my family, I've got to find a way to re-engage and do that. So you're not going to make it very long in life as a leader or otherwise if your life is out of balance. The next item that I would say that a leader must make sure happens, and that is you get in trouble if you don't give feedback. There are times that we get so busy and someone has done a project. Now, I know that if it's at work related, they get a paycheck and that should be enough. But please and thank you are not just magic words for children. They are magic words for adults, and they are even more important for those of us in leadership. None of us would be where we are today if it wasn't for a lot of people helping us. Give them feedback. Don't tell others that you weren't pleased with something that someone did for you, a job that they did. Share it with them privately. We praise in front of the crowd. We correct privately. No one wants to be corrected in front of a crowd. No one wants to be rebuked or challenged. Those are the kinds of things we do in private. That's still a part of the feedback loop. I need people to give me feedback. I need to give people in my life feedback. Another thing that a leader should never do is not tell the truth. If you can't be a person of integrity and honesty, no one will follow your leadership. We don't have much confidence in liars. And when we find out that what the public persona and what the public speech is, and if it doesn't back up with reality, we will lose. A leader will lose any ability to really lead. You may be able to lead positionally because you're the boss or you signed the paycheck, but people will lose their confidence. Another thing that leaders try to do and they should never do, and that is to avoid conflict. I think it was Brendan Bouchard who said that avoidance. Most people move into an avoidance mode, especially when it comes to conflict. If you want to know one thing that so many people are allergic to, it's not ragweed, it's not pollen, it's not flowers, it's conflict. And they'll go into an avoidance. And so avoidance appears to be the best way to handle, the best short-term way to handle conflict. That's pretty much the modus operandi of most people. But avoidance may be the best short-term way we think to handle conflict. But I'm going to tell you, avoidance is the best long-term strategy to ensure suffering and pain, is to avoid the conflict. Pain in this life is not avoidable. I don't relish being the one to tell you we live in a world in which there's going to be pain. You cannot avoid it. You can't live a pain-free life. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but that's a fact. But the pain we create avoiding conflict is pain you can't avoid. Very little gets better by putting it off when it comes to a conflict and it comes to dealing something. You cannot change what you will not confront. And many of us have things in our own lives that we need to confront. There are things in the church, there are things at work, there may even be things at home that we know we can't leave and let it go unchallenged, and it needs to have it happen, but we're afraid to do it. But you can't make the changes you need to make until you're willing to have take a good long look at yourself in the mirror and change it. Conflict avoidance, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, conflict avoidance creates greater conflict than solving the problem. And I'm going to give you an illustration that I gave when I interviewed for a position one time, when someone asked me, how well do you handle conflict? Now, when you're being interviewed and a member asks you, how well do you avoid conflict? You may not know much, but you'll know that there's some unresolved conflict at that place and that someone hasn't dealt with it. And I said, I heard Zig Ziglar say a long time ago, and I've heard Brian Tracy say it the most, if you've got to swallow a frog, that being the conflict, the issue, go ahead and swallow it. It doesn't get any prettier the longer you look at it. And oftentimes in the position I hold today, when I go in, much of the conflict that I face today is because people would not resolve these issues 6 months ago, last year, 5 years ago, or perhaps even up to a decade. You'll never be able to be a leader if your main goal in life is to avoid conflict. Now, I don't know that I enjoy conflict any more than anyone else does, but I'm seasoned enough to learn. You're going to face conflict. Get out in front of it, deal with it, deal with the repercussions, find a way forward, find a way through, and work your way through it. The last thing that I'm going to say that leaders should not do, and that is overreact. Many leaders have lost enormous amounts of credibility because they overreacted to something. There are times that someone played a joke, or there is something, yes, it was a problem, but it was not of the magnitude that we would just tear a whole place apart. Don't overreact. And listen, I'm talking to myself. In this year, my wife and I faced 3 major issues, all within about a 4-month time. One was a health scare with my wife that thankfully we've gotten through. Another was a family situation that was very difficult. And then one came with the responsibilities I have. These were not just your little run-of-the-mill ordinary problems. They were major big deals. And in the midst of it, listen to me, in the midst of it, I didn't know if we'd make it through any one of them, let alone all 3 of them snowballing upon us in less than 4 months. And it would be easy, and probably at times during that we did overreact to the stress and the strain of it. But here's what I want to say to you today. We're 3 to 4 months past the last one, and it's all working out. And God is in control. We've gotten through it. We've made it through. Don't overreact when you're facing a problem. Give it to God. Think about it. Find a course of action. Take the course of action. Keep steady. There's a thing that I heard years ago from someone. Keep silent, keep sweet, and keep stepping. You can't just blow up all of the time. Periodically, even people who like to talk like me just need to be quiet. And then you need to develop a sweet spirit. Don't let the life's issues embitter you. And then just keep stepping, keep moving forward, 1 foot after the other. I've just, because of a conversation yesterday with a friend, both what leaders should be doing, which I've already spoken about, and now what leaders shouldn't be doing. Don't forget to prioritize. Don't be a person who believes you know everything. Don't be an angry person. Seek, with God's help, to live a life of balance. Don't fail to give your family and friends and the people who work around you feedback. Don't tell lies. Don't be the person who seeks to avoid conflict at any cost. It ends up being far, far worse. And don't overreact to the issues of life. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust, my friend, today this has been like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and your heart. And wherever you receive podcasts, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, and on it goes. And leave a rating and a brief written review. It is very, very helpful. This is Dr. Ron saying to you, leader, you are doing better than you think you are. And until the next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.